What's up, everybody? Super sorry I'm late. Super sorry. Let me fix the audio here for a second. Running super late. Had a guy in a bay next to us, next to my office. He was blasting his music, and I couldn't for life of me figure out where it was coming from. And I didn't want to get the channel shut down due to some copyright that my neighbor's music was playing. You can see I'm sweating because I was running trying to figure out how to get him to shut it off. But luckily he's all done and it's turned off, and we can get the show on the road. Doug, I'm glad you like Andy's Tayo. Nice. Had a downvote. I wonder who that is. I wonder who's got a problem. No cake, man. I'm sweating like a dog. It'll happen though, I promise. It'll happen. And it'll be a fun fetty cake. It's just hard to actually get to the store because you got to wait outside. It's such a time killer. Or someone from USA Judo. Maybe. Or the JF or the JA. Where can we get a USA Judo patch from? I have no idea. A lot of people have tried to pitch them on the idea of merchandising stuff, like just to sell. But it's hard. They always want to put it onto the backs of like other companies so they don't have to make the investment and just collect a royalty. It's not a bad business model. Adrian, I'm glad you like the live streams. Hopefully it keeps everybody at least a little entertained, right? Just a little bit. I didn't get to prepare for this like I wanted to. Got distracted. Phil Porter was great with USA Judo merch. Let's see here. I wish there was a way. Let me see. Let me try to take a second here to get up, to get settled in while people get into the room, so that hopefully, can I just boom. This is a question from earlier today I want to talk about. Here's another one. Here's a third one. We're going to talk about some of the users here, right? They put in some pretty good questions that I kind of want to talk about. That they kind of brought up some valid points, and there are some points that I had actually, considered before I did episode 1 of this. So I just kind of want to bring them to light because they're super valid points, right? No, somebody, like, because I'm on an upstairs where my office is, like, I have noise canceling headphones, so I got up to use the bathroom and I could hear music playing, and I couldn't for the life, like, we have a stereo system here in the judo hall, and it was shut off, so I couldn't figure out where this music was coming from. I didn't know if there was, like, somebody had left their phone and it was a ringtone, but it was a guy in a bay downstairs was blasting music. So I had to go find him and get him to at least turn it down. But he shut it off. He was done for the night. It just took him a couple minutes. I didn't want to be 3 minutes into this with like a weird sound coming through the microphone and then get a strike on the account where I can't upload or do anything for a week. That would have sucked. So, yeah. Broke a sweat running around. And I hate running. I super hate running. So the fact that I did it just shows you like I was really trying. So here we go. Here's a good question. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Nope. What do you think about Fight to Win Judo Jiu-Jitsu promotion? I like it. I mean, it's good for judo. It at least, gets it out there for the jiu-jitsu people to kind of see and brings awareness to it. I don't think it helps as far as, growing judo in America or bringing awareness to judo. I think most people who pay attention to Fight to Win are a little bit more grappling aware, and they do know what judo is. They just choose to not do it, or they can't find a place to practice it, right? I think a lot of the reason why a lot of jiu-jitsu guys reach out to me is because their coaches don't offer takedowns and stand-up, so they still want to learn it. They're still looking for it. It's just not something that's really practiced at their clubs. So that's kind of my 2 cents on it. It's nice to see, though. I'm glad you like the show. But let's take a second and let's get into one of these questions that one of the users posed. I guess from the time we got off last night until today, some users went through the comments as I was looking through them today, and they left some good feedback that I think we should all kind of take a second and, really dive into why they have that opinion, and if I agree with it or don't agree with it, and just give my reasonings and my thoughts, being a lifelong martial artist and grappler. Let's see what the first one is here. Here we go. This is, what is this? Oh, no, this was a comment that I saw that I want to actually do a live talk on, right? I want to talk about, like, unusual training methods and strategies that I use personally. So this is actually going to be a topic that we talk about from sundown, that we're going to do like a full 1 hour live Q&A about, just so you guys can understand like the backstory of how I got to where I am and some of the things I think that really helped me along the way, and what some of my previous coaches did and my grassroots coaches did that helped me get to where I am today, because I do owe a lot of my success to them, as well as all the coaches that have worked with me over the years, even some coaches that weren't necessarily working with me specifically, but they were passing on knowledge at clubs I was at, and I was able to kind of pick that stuff up. Here's a good question. This is an interesting question just because of the way the rule is written for judo, right? The only way you can be in violation of the IJF ruling is if you're actually on the senior adult, highest level IJF roster. It's only then that the actual you cannot compete in other sports applies to you, right? So if you're just starting out and you haven't been to a Grand Slam, Grand Prix, World Cup, and you want to do a Fight to Win, like, no problem. You can't get sanctioned by the IJF having never competed on the IJF circuit. I think the question really becomes is, well, what if you are you're on the junior circuit or the cadet circuit internationally? Like, do you still qualify? And that could be yes. The way the rule is written and when the rule was written, it was for seniors only because that list didn't exist. Europe kept their own list. But I would venture to say yes. It would 100% be in violation. Just because they don't follow actual judo rules. It's like a hybrid rule set, which makes it a different sport. Scott, what is Gracie Garage? I thought that was just like a make your own home mats from like Home Depot with like random pieces of foam. And then doing jiu-jitsu out of it. So I don't know what a Gracie Garage is apart from buy a tarp and put some padding underneath it. And then hopefully you don't get a concussion or hit your head on the concrete. I mean, Adrian, I will say this right here. So here's this thing. He's asking for somebody for Christian since he's on the Junior Worlds list, and he's been asked several times, right? So I'll say this: if you're at that level where you can compete internationally and you're going to a world level event, you should probably not be doing a fight to win match, right? Judo is specifically fought on tatami because it is the safest mat area for you, right? It's why the IJF uses it. It meets all the specs. It does everything. The fight to win floor, I know because I was on it, unless they've changed it since, which they might have, it doesn't have the same impact density. So you run a high risk for concussions, dislocated shoulders. They say it's extra padding, but that's not necessarily what you want in a floor where you're doing judo, right? Because if it's too soft, it doesn't have the same kind of give. So I would just stay away. It's not worth it. And it doesn't determine who has better judo because it's this weird hybrid rule set. Not to mention it's done on a platform, and judo covers a lot of distance. So you're very likely to fall off the stage or get thrown off the stage and actually really hurt yourself. So I'm not a fan of it. If they had like a fighting area with the proper safety border, then maybe like at the Olympic Games, it's fought on a stage, but it has a massive 12 meter, I think it is, like safety area. No, 3 meter, 12 feet or whatever it is. Area. Moses, I am definitely going to try to do these after the quarantine is over, but we're probably going to have to dial it back because I do have a school to run and I have my own students I got to teach, and I got the judo kids, I got Project 2024, I got a lot of things going on. I just felt like in this environment, rather doing a private showing for my school, a private showing for Project 2024, a private showing for the judo kids, like I'll just do it here for everybody, right? And then everybody can, enjoy, check in, and follow along, right? And it's a lot of fun getting to meet some new people, do some different things. Doug, Gracie Garage is an online training with very questionable results. Are you talking about like the Gracie online blue belt thing? Is that what we're talking about here? I mean, if you need money, and Fight to Win's willing to pay you, and you're not at risk of losing everything, then yeah, like I'm not opposed to judo players doing it. I think it's great. Like go out there, have some fun, mix it up a little bit, put on a show, because that's what it is. It's about putting on a show. It's not about nickel and diming people to hopefully edge out a win, right? It's not that, like, you're not going to win some grand title. It's a one-off match. So, yeah. Okay, so this comes up a lot, right, guys? I'm all for, right, doing some strength and conditioning programming for judo. I did Fuji Fit for a while. I'm going to do some stuff here for YouTube, but the strength and conditioning portion is going to wait. I'm actually in the process of building out a gym for my students. Since we can't actually physically fight or anything, I'm picking up most of my mats, and I'm going to put some rubber flooring in, and I'm going to put a full functioning strength gym for all my students to come in. That way they can get physically fit, stay in shape, stay motivated, and we're just going to have a small mat section where we can do some movement drills and stuff. That way we meet all the law standards, and it'll be beneficial for everybody. So once that goes in, you're going to see some strength and conditioning style videos come from me. Just as an FYI. But let's talk USA Judo. Some of the problems, some of the solutions. What do we have here? Here we go. Here's a question that I thought was fairly interesting. Maybe I can shrink this up a little bit and then kind of like hide it here in the corner. right? Sorry, I got a text. Would a new point system in judo improve popularity of the sport? An example is fighters, I'm blocking myself, score points, and at the end of the 4-minute match, whoever accumulates the most points wins, blah, 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 blah. Could be elimination of golden score and lots of Shidos. Just an idea. Thanks. I like this. Hey, from Hong Kong. I like this concept, right, of a different point system. I myself always thought it would be super interesting to have a judo match where it was just 5 minutes. No way around it. There was no, like, knockout. Let's just see how it goes. Like, you armbar somebody, you choke somebody, you pin somebody. If it's an Ippon today, you get 10 points. If it's a Wazari, it's 5 points. And you just see who has the most points at the end of the show. And I think if you still get, your 3 Shidos or 4 Shidos, whatever it is they decide, it would actually end the fight. Like, you could still end it on penalties, but it would go the full distance. But I do think it does take away from the pizzazz, right? That, like, wow, he laid him out, right? It takes away that shock factor. I don't necessarily think, from an athlete standpoint, if I threw you for Ippon and there was like a minute and a half left, I'm not really out to throw you again. Strategically, I would go into gripping, I would go into movement, I would go into a little bit more defense, right? The reason why you work so hard to put people away is to conserve energy, and then you get a longer rest before your next match. So I think it takes away, and it would actually dull out the sport. The more I think about it, the more I think that the system, I like where it's at today, believe it or not. I really like what the IJF has done with the rules as far as no Yukos, no Kokas. Like, it's made it simple. It's made it easy, right? And I do think it's easy to understand, right? The problem entails for people on why they think judo's boring and it's not exciting is just the dynamics of it. There's not enough going on. It's no different than the UFC, which in turn could be the most exciting sport on the planet when you have 2 people who are really fighting. Like, they are going for broke. They're trying to knock each other out. They're trying to submit everybody. It's not this, how do I win on the point and how do I get to the next round, and you won this round, I don't need to win this round, I'm going to coast and recover because you hit me kind of hard the last round. And when 2 people don't want to fight and they're going to try to nickel and dime themselves to a win, there's nothing, any rule change that anybody wants to make that can prevent a boring match. That it's just in the cards, it's going to happen, right? At some point, winning is more important than losing. And if you have to have a boring match in order to get the W, then you're going to have a boring match. It's just, that's sports in general. That's just the way it is. Hey, a super chat. Nice. Thank you, Rory. So, I do like where they're at because I feel like they're using the actual stats. The IJF is using the stats to actually gauge where the sport should go. I have a feeling, I don't know this, I'm totally making this up, but I have a feeling somebody looked at all the data and they were like, hey, if you got to 3 Shidos, how often did you actually win the fight? Right? And they probably said, hey, it's only 10% of the people actually won while getting to 3 Shidos. So let's just ignore that 10%. That way the other 90% can just win the fight and we can be done and we can cut down on the actual athlete's time that they have to spend on the mat. Because don't forget, as an athlete, we fight year-round. Year-round. We're always fighting. I mean, obviously not now, but just in general, we're always fighting, okay? So anything that we can do to kind of cut down on that, because of the number of events that we have to go to around the world and travel and cut weight and compete and fight through injuries, I feel like it's better. It's better for the athlete. It's better for the sport. It's cheaper for the sport too, mind you, because if the matches are shorter, right? Like I bet you the IJF, again, looked at all of the stats and said, hey, if you're winning the match at the 4-minute mark, how many times do you actually lose in the final minute? And if the case is, hey, only 20% of the people really go from losing the first 4 minutes to winning in the last minute, it's worth it for the other 80% of the judo players to just say, hey, let's just cut it down a minute because you don't win often enough in the final minute anyways. And so it just saves you that headache. Like, yes, you could have won if you had an extra minute, right? But at the end of the day, statistically speaking, it is not the case. So I think it's better for the overall sport. I wouldn't say that judo is only boring for people that don't know judo. I think judo is boring for anybody that's not invested in somebody who is competing, right? Even myself, like I don't necessarily enjoy watching judo, but I like watching certain players because I'm invested. Like I want to see how that person does. Which brings me back to the whole marketing side of things. If you could get people invested, right, you could actually get people to tune in to see how they do. The UFC does a great job of that. They market their fighters and it gets people interested in one of two ways. You either learn to hate that person, right? Ronda Rousey is a great example. She was so one side of the fence or the other where she picked a side as like the badass woman who was going to knock out anybody. When she fights, you're doing one of two things. You either love her and you want to see her continue her streak and win, or you're on the other side of the fence where you're like, I absolutely hate her and I want to see her get her head knocked off or her teeth kicked in or choked unconscious, right? Miesha Tate's going to take her this time. She's made some adjustments, right? Made adjustments. But at the same time, it gives both sides of the argument a reason to tune in. Judo, on the other hand, it doesn't do necessarily a good job of marketing its people, which in turn doesn't make me feel like a person who is watching the sport, a fan of the sport, because I don't really get to know the fighters and the people who are doing this day in and day out. And social media has done a good job where athletes can market themselves and let people into their lives and you can build a connection with them and you tend to tune in. But like from a national stage, I just don't see it, right? It's hard. Chuck, I do see at some point they will bring back leg grabs. At some point it's going to happen. Everything in judo has always, like, it goes in these giant circles where people feel like they need to make a change or they need to feel impactful or important, or the fighters have figured out the rules so well that they can really use them to their advantage. And basically when that happens, when you see enough fighters cheating the system, so to speak, where they figured out how to use the rules to kind of game the system, it's important for the head organization to make a change to that. And leg grabs will come back around at some point. Do I think it's going to be this quad or the next quad? Probably not. I've heard rumblings on the international scenes of them coming back, but I've never talked to anybody in like a concrete position that was like, yeah, we're going to bring those back. So, yeah. Ribbon twirling is an Olympic sport. Yes, it is. Yeah, the IJF is putting out interviews with players lately, so they're trying. But again, it's not about that. It's not about like the IJF doing it. you have to do it within the community that the athletes are from in order to get that population to back the athlete, right? That way there's funding for the athlete, there's support for the athlete. You know, they feel, there's a feeling that goes along with, what am I trying to say? Like it's a different feeling when you're competing for more than just yourself, and you're competing for everybody back home who has sacrificed like the smallest of things, but they have made some sort of like little sacrifice on behalf of you and accomplishing your goal. It gives you a sense of power and a sense of pride that you can take on to the competition mat and then compete to the best of your abilities, right? Let's see, what was another question here that I wanted to get into? Here we go. I don't want to block my face. Let's go. Let's move you over here. There we go. Okay. So Big Wowo here, who's a member of the channel. Thank you for that, Big Wowo. I have a question about kids judo. What happened in your personal... Oh, this was another topic I wanted to do a thing on. So I guess I pulled up the wrong screenshots here. This was another topic I wanted to talk about. Big Wowo, you're here. Nice. But this was another topic I wanted to talk about. I know there's a long one here, and maybe we can talk about it in stages. Let me see here. Big Wowo, Recon, nice. Good to see you guys. So let's bring in this massive comment here, right? This guy wrote like a huge paragraph. So we're going to take this in stages as we talk about it, okay? I'm going to kind of shrink it up. If you guys can't read it, because I don't want to block my face too much, you can find it in the comments below to the first one. And, you know, he goes on a lot here, but I'm going to kind of try to chip away at this. Let me lean in here and kind of get a gauge as to what he's saying. He says, I agree with the marketing problem, but I think the argument that is players are cheap is a cop-out. If you look at countries that are cleaning up at judo at the IJF level, Japan, France, and Canada, etc., they have nationalized sports systems. People pay $20 a month to have access to the National Sports Center in the community. This leads me to my next point. So let's stop right there. Let me hide this. Let's stop right there for a second. Thank you, William, for the super chat. Hopefully you're able to come back and watch this tomorrow. But let's stop it right there. I hear you, and I do not disagree with the idea that if we had a national sports system, that it would be beneficial for everybody. I 100% do not agree with that. But we are talking about America. And in the United States, our government does not govern sports. Period. I don't care if Japan does it, if Canada does it, if France does it. The idea that judo in America can grow because one of us is going to march onto the White House and say, we demand that you, the government, right, takes over the control of sports and all the funding, is crazy to me. It's crazy, right? Even all of our Olympic teams, right? The United States Olympic Committee is not governed by the government. It's technically its own business, right? So their job as the United States Olympic Committee is to go out and get sponsors and raise funds to support the NGBs, the national governing bodies, to provide them some resources in order to develop the athletes at the elite level. Their job is to provide the funds to the athletes from the NGB to the elite level, right? It is up to the organization, the NGB, to develop its grassroots. And to think that USA Judo, USA Track and Field, USA Wrestling, that they're all going to band together and then march onto the White House front lawn and be like, we demand this, or they're going to go to the Senate or whatever it is that they have to do in order to get this passed. Like, I'm not even seeing it. So I don't disagree with it. It's just, I don't feel like it's in the realm of possibilities. And I really dislike the idea that people have where they're like, well, that's how the Japanese do it, and if you want to be as good as them, you should do it like them. Where you have to actually take into consideration the resources that you have as a country, as a human, as a club. You have to take your resources and say, what can I do to perform as well as them with the resources I have? Because to me, it's a cop-out to say, well, if I can't do it like the Japanese do it, I'm never going to be as good. Like, why even bother? Like, so we don't have judo in the school systems. So we don't have judo in the colleges. Like, so we don't have Olympic champions where we can just pass out, right? People forget that in Japan, whether you're a national team member or not, you could be paid a full year's salary just to represent a company on the judo team. Think about that. If I lived in Japan, having never been to the Olympics, but I was like a top 5 player, which is what I think I would be had I been in Japan, I probably wouldn't have been selected to go to the Olympics because my judo is ugly by their standards, but I would have been competitive on their national scene. I would have picked up a job, right, after college with a company, right, times 24, Park 24, whatever those teams are, and then I would have been paid a salary where I do a little bit of work for the company and I spend 95% of my time, 90% of my time just practicing judo, right? Think about that. They actually have a system where they can afford to do that with their athletes. You can't expect a country that doesn't have those resources and that lineage to do that. And so like that's why it frustrates me when I go to USA Judo events and people are like, judo should be in the colleges. Judo should be in the school systems like wrestling. But we don't have the infrastructure in order to do that. But let's jump into like one of his other questions here. Right? Let me pull this back up here. So we left off the $20 a month access to national sports communities. Right? Like, let's not forget, right, that remember what I said about Canada? They actually get paid. There are people there right now that work for Judo Canada inside a province to grow judo and develop the athletes. There is not one coach in all of USA Judo that is paid to teach judo. So you want to go from 0 people being paid to the government just doing it all for us, right? How would you even start that job search, right? Like what would even qualify you at that point? You have no job experience because you've never been paid, right? It's such a crazy thing for me to wrap my head around. But let's move on. I digress. This leads me to my next point. Judo should share its fixed cost. A dojo is an expensive building to put a soft floor in. He is not wrong there. Man, that'll get you. That's expensive. And it kind of needs no pillars. Like, it's hard to find. Not going to lie. Even if you had 2 hours of judo 7 days a week, that's only 14 hours in a week. Your dojo space is massively underutilized. And it's like, wait a second. My whole thing, right, when I did the first cast, right, guys, when I did the first one, my whole thing was, you should do it professionally. Why on God's green earth would you ever invest in a building to use the space for 2 hours? And now, mind you, I hear this all the time. So it's not him. I hear this from everybody, and it's like they don't understand the idea of like segmenting their classes in order to talk and teach in such a way that the class can actually perform and improve, right? And what I mean by that, let me hide this really quick while we talk about this, right? No different than when I talk in, the rant number 1. If you want to go back and listen to that, I have no idea how you're going to do that because I want you to stay here, but at some point go listen to it. I talked about the idea of a coach who understands how to coach a cadet and get him to that high level and get him to know how to transition into the juniors where he can pass them off to a coach that is really good at working with juniors, and they know how to speak to that age, and they know how to teach, and they know what they need to work on in order to perform. And then they get passed on to that under 23 and that senior level coach, right? The same thing has to happen at the club level. If you're running a class, if you're running a judo class, and you have one class that is 2 hours and you expect your entire dojo to be there, how do you teach the 5 white belts you have on the mat? How do you teach the 3 green belts, the 4 brown belts, and the 3 or 4 black belts that you have? How would you structure that class? Who are you teaching? Because at some point, you are under teaching the black belts to teach the white belts, right? Or you're teaching the green belts, in which case the white belts are confused and the black belts are still bored. Or you're teaching the brown and black belts, and now everybody else is just totally lost. Just lost in general, right? Sorry, I'm not totally following the chat here. But that would be like why, if you had a space where you could put in flooring, you could teach judo at 7 a.m. and you could run a fitness class designed around being a great martial artist. I could give people a killer workout doing judo style strength and conditioning movements on a mat for 45 minutes. And I can charge $100 a month, $150 a month from that. Rory, I'll get to you in a second. Thank you for the super chat. Whereas, you run into your noon class for all your business professionals that have the time to take a lunch break, or your 11 a.m. women's only class for the stay-at-home moms, or your 3 p.m. for your toddlers that are just getting out of school, or your 4 o'clock class for your elementary school, your 5 o'clock for your middle school, your 6 o'clock for your high school and adult, your 8 o'clock for your competition team. You could fill out an entire day where you're working 8 to 10 hours a day on your business, your craft, perfecting it, growing it in the community, right? Oh, Chris, it's not from scratch. The BJJ community is doing it. The Taekwondo community is doing it. The karate community is doing it. It's not from scratch. I'm not crazy. Oh, Rory, thank you for the super chat. Here's his question, guys. He says, hey, Travis, is raw strength more important and useful in judo than BJJ? I have yet to find a BJJ guy with raw strength. And I've worked out with a lot of people, but they're not actually that strong physically. They're in great physical shape, but they're actually not that strong. When you grab them, it's not like you feel like you're being manipulated like a puppet. When a judo guy grabs you, you're a panic sets in. Where a guy could grab your sleeve when you do judo and you can feel his raw power, and it's a scary feeling. So it definitely leads towards the judo side. In jiu-jitsu, you probably have to be in better physical condition, just because at the black belt level, they're 10-minute matches that could drag on forever, right? ADCC, your final could be 40 minutes, which is insane. At some point, I don't get it. But, yeah. Chris, let's pull this one in. Travis, you're talking about creating an entire infrastructure from scratch in a free market. What is the incentive to pass along talented juniors unless I'm a part of a collective and paid? Okay, Chris, great question. Because this is the thing I feel like a lot of the judo community is really, really missing. And it's that sense of, where do I stand in all of this? Like, where's my place in this ecosystem that is American Judo? And the longer, in my opinion, we keep it like the wild, wild west, the farther we're going to fall behind, Chris, and the farther you're going to have to climb, I guess, in order to reach it. Right now, in a nutshell, this is how I feel Judo is in America, right in a nutshell, right? So you could pretty much take off after this if you just want to hear this part. USA Judo and American Judo coaches, they could care less about the development of athletes. All they care about is existing with the little bit of power that they have in hopes that a superstar happens to walk into their club and become somebody. That's it. That's it. And I will say this, 80% of all coaches that people say are good, that they base that on nothing other than their athlete's performance. Right? And you guys might think I'm crazy, right? Let me know that statement again. Let me say that again. Most people determine a coach's worth based on their athlete's performance and determine if that is what makes them good or not. And it's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. Super crazy. Oh, and it drives me insane, Chris. I'm going to leave your question here because I haven't quite gotten to it because it brought me to this point where, like, I get so angry to the point where, like, I am disheartened to go to any, like, national level American Judo event. It is so disheartening because I see people at these events and I see them flock around coaches who have an athlete. Scott, listen up here. Listen up here, okay? This will make sense in a second, right? Wouldn't people judge a coach based on his coaching ability? Like, listen up here. Listen up here, right? From the few, right, times that if anybody has seen my live sessions here, where, like, I talk about gripping and I talk about movement and I talk about all these different things, right? It's because I have a system in which I teach. Chuck Wall, thank you for being a new member. High five. Boom. Love it. Look at that bruise. You guys know why that bruise is here? It's because I sit at my computer desk from like 7 a.m. until now, and it's where my wrist sits and I use my mouse. Like doing like the photoshopping and the photo editing and like emails and all that stuff, and it just sits there and it grinds away, and it's like a never-ending bruise now. Drives me nuts. But anyways, digress. So here, let me ask you a question, guys. Let's throw up a hypothetical here. Let's throw up a hypothetical, okay? Let's let nobody put anything in the chat. Nobody put anything in the chat. Give it a second. Just let it sit there. And I want to ask a question to everybody, and let's just answer yes and no. Nothing in the chat. Nothing in the chat. Let's just throw it out here. Yeah, I gotta get a mouse pad. Stop putting things in the chat. I gotta let the chat like simmer down here. Guys, nothing in the chat. Just I want to ask a question. I want to get an honest response with nothing in here. Okay. Now, here's the question. Am I a good coach because a kid shows up to my school who is tough, with natural ability, and wins a tournament with no judo? Now, what I'm saying is, what if you took a kid with wrestling and you threw him into your local judo tournament and he won with 1 week of judo? Are you a good judo coach? Yes or no? Just yes or no, right in the comments. Let's just give it like 30 seconds. Does that make you a good judo coach? right? No different than a guy who teaches judo but takes a BJJ brown belt with 10 years, right? Look at all these no's. Look at all of these no's. This right here is my point. No, everybody's like a no. Hell no. Not even a little bit. So why, when you go to a national level event and you see people, look at this. I love it. People are following along. You see somebody on the side of the mat and their kid is winning. Is that because the kid is naturally gifted or because the coach is actually a good coach? And the reason why this is so important of a topic for the American judo players is because the skill level in America is actually very low. Right? It's very low. So if you took somebody with a little bit of natural talent, a little bit of toughness, a little bit of fight, a little bit of grit, you put them in a judo gi, you teach them one or two things over the course of like a year or two, and you throw him into a national event, you're going to get coaches going around going, yeah, he's only been doing judo a year, but he really took it to that guy who's been doing it since he was like 7. Because the guy who is 7 isn't technically, by other sport standards, a high-level athlete. Not judo player, athlete. Like, I'm talking just about pure athletics. Right? If you took somebody had a really high athletic ability in American judo, you taught him for 6 months, he could do damage at all of our national events. Because the level's too low. But what happens is people at all of these events, right, they kind of flock around the people who have winning athletes. Because they think because their athletes are winning today, if I send my kid there or if my kid goes here, my kid's going to win. And then what happens is they send them to people who don't actually have a system in place for success. Because that is the nail on the head that makes a good coach. They have a system in place for success where they know that if an athlete is at X level, they can get them to the next level. It is highly unrealistic, and I'm saying this with like 100% certainty, to take somebody from 0 to 100%. Right? If I'm a fitness instructor and somebody comes to me with like, all these limitations, right? Your goal as a fitness coach is to not get them to be a professional athlete, but to get them to be healthier, right? If you're not a professional, you can't expect professional results. And the problem is coaches No, it's not diving into the nature versus nurture. All I'm saying is if you're going to judge a coach, right? If you're going to judge a coach, you should actually judge it on his coaching, not the athletics that the natural God-given gifts the athlete has to perform. Right? You can't do that. Right? Like if you go to a judo tournament and you have a coach that's sitting there and they're coaching and all they're saying is ref, Shido, shake, 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 move, 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 shake, shake, shake. Like what tactical information is that coach actually able to give in order to benefit the athlete? Now, mind you, in a situation, right, you guys are all thinking, you're like, but maybe that's the right answer. And maybe it is. But all I'm saying is don't focus on the athlete's result to justify if the coach is good. Listen to the coach and his interaction with the athlete and listen to the information given to determine whether the coach is actually good. It's like when I had the Fuji blog and I put it out there as, cheerleading coaching, right? Cheerleading coaching. That's what we're talking about. Like, and some athletes, not gonna lie, some athletes, all they need is a cheerleader. They don't actually need the tactical advice. Like that's actually how you're supposed to coach them. So again, which is why I say listen to the coaches actually coaching their athlete and the information they give them to see if it is valid and it makes sense, right? I hear a lot of coaches all the time, right? And a lot of the times I'm like, you are dumb. That is the dumbest thing you could have told that guy to do. And that's just my opinion. It's not because that guy is wrong. I'm just entitled to my opinion, and inside my system of how I teach, that's the wrong answer. But inside his system, it may not be. And that's 100% okay. But now let's inverse the situation. Let's inverse the situation where I have been overseas. Like, I've been to the senior level European camps. I've been there. I've been standing on the side of the mats like this, and I've been watching, and I've been listening. I've been watching my athletes get beat up, and I watch them come off to the side. But in the meantime, while I'm standing there, I can hear, because I'm always listening, I'm always trying to learn, I'm always trying to get ideas, I can hear the other coaches actually providing information to their athletes. And on top of that, coaches from countries that aren't represented at the Olympic Games as far as like winning Olympic medals, right? When their coaches are working with the athletes, I hear what the coach is saying and I'm like, man, he's not wrong. He's 100% right. He's 100% right. But then the athlete doesn't do it. And it's like, but is he a bad coach? Is the information he is giving bad? And part of coaching is to build a relationship and a trust where the athlete will actually do what the coach says. And that takes time. That takes a ton of time, which is why it's important to work with younger athletes in a professional setting, because you have to build that relationship and that trust where you're speaking the same language. You can look at your athlete and go, man, they're having like an off day. I better ease up. We better like chill out on practice today a little bit and just kind of let them sit so we don't break them mentally, because that's not what we're here to do. We're here to build the athlete up and make them feel good, and we gotta coach them along, right? Like, I can yell and I can hit and I can scream and I can choke all my junior males. I can't do that with my females. You've got to treat them differently, because as a coach, you have to understand that you have to treat female fighters a little bit differently than you treat your 13-year-old male who's like, trying to act like the young tough guy. And it's understanding that dynamic. And when you talk about, is he a good coach or not, does he display the qualities that make up a good coach? And the problem when I put out that survey on Fuji Sports, the number one quality that came back was they're financially secure so that they have the ability to coach, because people in America don't want to actually coach as a profession. Which, mind you, if you were good enough, why wouldn't you? Right? When does a professional coach ever work for free? Right? It's insane. But the American judo system is built on this idea of, well, if an athlete really wants it, he'll just figure it out. And if they ever get to a point where we should pay attention, we'll pay attention. And it's such a disheartening way of running it. And it's not USA Judo, it's not the JF, it's not the JA, it's people in general. Which brings me back to Chris's question here, because I totally went off on a tangent. Super sorry about that. He said, in a free market, what is my incentive to pass along a talented junior unless I'm part of a collective and paid? And Chris, here it is. Here's my thing, right? When I knew USA Judo was not going to work with Jimmy, right? They said no. They said no to his plan. They said no to all these things. And he was like, well, if you're not going to listen to my ideas, I'm going to step aside. And I never wanted to petition for the senior coach, because I feel like I wouldn't do a good job at it. I don't feel like I'm there yet as a coach. I might understand the judo, but I can't build that rapport with the senior athletes, and I don't understand. I haven't coached long enough to develop enough to technically be good at it, right? But by sitting next to Jimmy and Big Jim, who are some of the best coaches we've ever had in America, I learn things and I develop and I run ideas by them and I coach in front of them and I watch how they interact and I see things from the outside. I see the struggles, I see the pain points, and I can work through it and I can learn. And hopefully one day that job actually does exist in this country and it's one that I could petition for, but it doesn't exist. But back to Chris's question. I would rather be the best grassroots judo coach in America than be a failing senior coach. I would rather coach a team to be the best junior team in the country that wins the most national championships in the US. I would rather be that guy than, be a failing senior coach. And it brings me to that point of like, what do you want as a coach, right? Do you want to be a grassroots person who really loves teaching beginners and bettering people's lives and growing the sport of judo, where all you're trying to do is get the masses through the door? You need experts at that who love it, take it on as a challenge, and they're good at it. There's some people who are just naturally good at it, right? And then inside that area, there's usually a guy who is qualified that is a little bit tougher, a little bit harder, has good competitive awareness, has good coaching skills, but because he's a little tough, but because he's a little rough around the edges, right? He's a little hard. He pushes his kids and his adults really hard. He tends to have a smaller school. But the competitive people that come out of it are great because he's good at it. Where you have a school that is more profitable off to the side because he really enjoys the community and growing it. And when you try to divide your time between growing the grassroots, growing the national champion, growing the senior elite player, going to the Olympics, somebody somewhere is suffering. And for me as a coach, I feel like I've let down the community that I have now created, right? Like, I don't want to let anybody down. I want to tell everybody around, like, these are my people. This is what I'm good at. If you want to come along to kind of learn and listen, do that, but understand that this is my focus for this, right? If you're too old or you're too skilled and you don't like the way I teach, it's because it's geared towards the younger audience. Or you could say, hey, I'm teaching some high level stuff here and like, I get it, you're lost, but I'm here to help these people, right? When I teach judo seminars, for example, and I see 30 black belts in the room and 10 white belts, I cater to the 30 black belts. And the white belts to me are just there to hopefully kind of get some stuff. And I'll pass along some knowledge and I'll help them out a little bit, but I'm not going to stay over there and try to get them up to the level of a black belt in a few hours. I'm going to really try to make sure that the black belts are getting it so that they can pass that knowledge down when they go back to their clubs. And it's just that difference where, like, you're not passing him along. You're like, my coaches back home are proud that I left and look at what I accomplished. Look at what they helped me do. They are proud of that fact, and I am proud that they did that for me. It's not like I kicked them to the curb and I was like, F you, I'm done. Don't ever talk to me again. You did nothing for me. It's not like that. I talk to them all the time. I talked to them after the other podcast the other night just to see how they were doing. Right? Like, they're still there. They still exist. They may not have a say in my training methods or like how I should improve my Uchimata, but the relationship and the friendship that was cultivated from when I was a kid and as I grew up, it still exists. And I think a lot of people are afraid of that. I totally ignored the chat, guys. I'm so sorry. Like, here's the thought. Here's a thought. If money was no issue, right? If money was no issue, I would build a hotel. I would build a professional studio that had weightlifting, yoga, judo. The hotel would be attached to it, and it would be like a little ecosystem with like a cafeteria. And inside that hotel system, right, I would put all of my judo players, all the way from cadets to seniors, juniors, masters that wanted to stay in. There'd be like these guest places, and there'd be a coach that would be paid like $100,000 a year to just live there, and he would coach judo all day, all age groups. Even for the local community, there would be class times for them. And then I would hire teachers for middle school. I would hire teachers for high school. I would hire teachers for college. And everything would be done inside this room where kids had to go to school, they had to weight train, they had to pay attention to their nutrition, and I would professionalize the sport. But that's crazy. That is absolutely insane. We in no way, shape, or form as a country are ready for that. So I don't even want to hear the argument that that is possible. That is such wishful thinking from the community, right? Everybody wants to go into this, let's just explode. But for most people, just so you're aware, just so everybody's aware, it is possible, right? And wrap your head around this, okay? It is possible for a business to grow so fast that it fails because it doesn't have the infrastructure to support the growth. That is what would happen in the American judo ecosystem if we just all of a sudden woke up one day and were like, crap, we got judo in colleges, we got judo in schools, what do we do? It's insane. It's insane. It's crazy. Here's a great example. Okay, I love this. Kusotare. I probably totally pronounced that wrong, right? But here we go. He said, as a result of chat the other day, I'm thinking about charging the due structure at my club to go from $25 a month to $125 a month. Use the extra dollars for competitive cost. And it's like, I've had this conversation with local school owners. I'm like, hey, stop teaching for free. Even if you don't want to get paid, stop teaching for free. Take all the money that you would have made and sponsor kids to go to different events, to travel so that you can travel, so that you don't have to use the hard-earned money that you earn to support your family, but the judo club can actually support you and fund all of your trips, right? You could fund other coaches' trips. You could hire a coach to actually travel with a junior team while a senior team went to a different tournament that was better than them, better for them on the same weekend. So I like it. I like you. So if you're like, hey man, like I just feel super guilty. I really like the idea of just teaching for free. No problem. I mean, I'm completely against it, and you shouldn't do that. You should charge because you have knowledge, no different than anything else you'd ever want, right? If you want to learn how to play a guitar, you got to pay somebody, right? If you want to learn how to play the piano, you got to pay somebody. If you want to paint your house, you got to pay somebody. Like there's these things. That was a terrible example, by the way. I just had a brain fart and was thinking about paint because the guy was painting the dojo today. And it's just something you got to get over. But that's a huge jump. $25 to $125. That's a huge jump. If it were me, I'd probably, not knowing your student base or where they're from or what they can afford, I'd probably raise it to like $50 bucks. I feel like you can't just go 5 times the amount or 4 times the amount or whatever. That's crazy. But what you can do is you can raise their membership, right? You can raise it 25 bucks every 6 months. And then the next person that walks through your door to sign up, be like, hey man, it's 125 bucks a month. Like, I got to raise my prices, right? I'm a professional. Everybody that's here, they've been grandfathered in because they were here when I started, but now that the business is here, it's $125. That's the due price. Like, I have value. These are all the reasons of why I think I'm worth it. These are all the things I can do for you. These are all the things I can teach you. And I would love to work with you. I think you'd be a great fit for the community. Right? You can sell $125 is nothing. Have any of you actually ever, like, how much do you make an hour teaching judo at $25 a month? Like, what's your hourly rate? You should probably go to jail because you make less than minimum wage, which is illegal that you hired yourself for less than minimum wage, or your other coaches. Oh, look at this right here. At $25 a month, students don't take it seriously. It's cheap for them to blow off practice if they don't feel like it. I love that statement because I 100% am behind that statement. Right? And to everybody here about the parents, right? Parents won't pay $100. Like, if we go back, let me get rid of this guy's thing right here. If we go back to this guy's question right here, he actually goes into, like, parents can't pay for it, which is crazy because all the BJJ schools in America charge it, all the Taekwondo schools charge it, all the karate schools charge it, and this guy is here telling me that it's insane and no parent can afford it, right? Let me tell you this. Back to his statement here. If a parent pays $100 a month for their kid to go somewhere, and that kid just wakes up one day on the wrong side of the bed and he's like, I don't want to go to judo. You know what that parent's going to do? They're going to go, I'm paying $100 a month. You're going to judo. And it'll help and it'll incentivize the parents to force their kids and give you, the sensei, the person in charge, the chance to actually win that kid over and become his friend and give him friends inside the school that he's actually going to want to come and hang out with. And a parent will pay for that privilege because at the end of the day, right, think about it like this. What does it cost a parent for a babysitter an hour? And how many times does that kid come to your school? Take that hourly rate and know that if a parent wanted an hour of their own personal time to catch up on work, go get a coffee, listen to a podcast, listen to me on YouTube, rant about why they should be paying $100, but they get that time back. That in and of itself, forget about what you're teaching to your students. That in and of itself has value to parents. Let that sink in. Let it sink in a little bit. Crazy. Some people do value free. Right here, I love it. I have 49 years of experience in judo. I'm worth more than $25 a month. You are 100% right. 100% right. Oh. Trying to catch up on the chat. Hey, James, thank you for the super chat. Do you think if Newaza became more of an emphasis... Let me read this here. Do you think if Newaza became more of an emphasis, do you think it would help it compete against BJJ? 100% no. 100% no. I think if we had people that actually ran judo schools for profit and actually pushed it in their communities, more people would do judo than BJJ. Because you know what? I don't care what anybody tells you. You grab another human and you smash them into the ground, that feels good. That just feels like, oh, it's so nice. And when it's done effortlessly and you just, boom, you hit that timing and boom, you hit that foot sweep and he plants himself, it gives you such a sense of like, I nailed it, right? People love it. And people love the idea that if they get into a scuffle that they're just going to throw you to the ground and knock you unconscious. People love it. The problem is nobody pushes it into the community. And when the one guy who has a club out of a community center does, it's usually done by a community post on like a Word doc, right? Or like a group picture. Or like one of the parents is like a photographer and they take a couple of pictures and they look really nice. But there's actually not that much done, right? It can't be the one school that professionalizes. They need 5 or 6 schools to compete against, because when there's competition, the level is raised, right? People will always try to outdo each other. And when you have good, healthy competition, right? I'm not talking about like, hey, you're going to charge $100 a month, so I'm going to charge 60 and people are going to come over here. We're not talking about price slashing or, stealing competitors or running ads against other schools or bashing other people. We're talking about healthy competition where you actually promote your business and yourself and what you have to offer to the community, because people want it. People want those things all the time. Look at that statement right there. Proof is in the pudding. Right there. Right there. Read that, everybody. I was paying $150 a month for my boy's kickboxing. Kickboxing. Right? Now think about this. He's paying $150 a month for kickboxing. Do you know what it costs for the gear? You could buy a heavy bag at a local sporting goods store for like $125. You could buy your kids gloves. You could get the whole setup for $300. And he could just hit bags at home. But you know why he pays? Right here, he's paying $150 because that instructor has knowledge and he wants his kid to be good. Not to mention, he probably wants the other things that he's going to get while his kid is learning how to kickbox. His kid's going to get tough. His kid's going to stay in shape. His kid's not going to be a bully. His kid's going to learn how to follow directions. Not to mention, he might get a 1-hour reprieve to do whatever it is he wants to do. Maybe he wants to scroll Instagram for an hour. Maybe he wants to get a coffee. Maybe he wants some alone time with his wife. I don't know. But you get an hour. Right? You could even drop your kid off 15 minutes early, pick him up 15 minutes late, and get an hour and a half. But don't do that. School owners hate that. I hate that. Don't do that. But you could if you wanted to. Let me scroll all the way down here to the bottom. See right. Right? Oh, and the other... Let's go back to this guy's comment. Because he wrote a ton. Like, he basically says in here that we should dominate the real estate. And hi Dominic. I hope you're not getting fat. I know that guy. Just don't get fat. I hope you're not getting fat. That's all I'm saying. Right? But he's basically saying in here, right, that we should dominate real estate. And it's like, how did we go from not being able to lease a building to dominating real estate? Like, how did that happen? Like, he went from it's too expensive to open up a school, but we're going to dominate real estate. I'm just, I feel like I've been on this guy enough. But he has solid ideas, and it's not that, I think 100% if we had enough schools, there'd be school owners out there buying buildings in strip malls so that the other strip mall locations would pay them rent so that their judo school could operate for free. I love it. I'm 100% there with you. I just don't think we're there yet. That's all I'm saying. Look at this. 73. Look at this. I'm so disappointed. I am so disappointed. Oh, so disappointed. Oh. Oh, can't even. So for those of you guys who don't know, Dominic, right? Done a couple of Project 2024 things, you know. Oh. He's not a 73 kilo player. And it's like, oh. Like, guys, I don't want to, like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Like, I don't need excuses. I need performance. I don't need excuses. I need performance. And my biggest complaint, right? My biggest complaint, I'm going to dial it down here a little bit. My biggest complaint with people when they come through USA Judo is the second they have the ability to fall back on an excuse, they take the first chance they can. And it, like, it drives me insane, and it is so disheartening to see talented people fall short throughout their entire careers because of not focusing on performance and using excuses to justify what they could have done, right? And it's such like a thing that is like hard to understand unless you've actually been there and seen it, or you actually understand the philosophy behind it so that you can see it when people do it. Here's a good example. Here's a great example, okay? And I 100% agree with this, okay? So here's an example. If anybody ever tells you that if they got paid more, they would perform better. Now, with that statement, there is a base level that you have to make in order to perform and do your job. But when you've reached that limit to just get by, and everything else above it is gravy, and you use the argument of you're not making enough, you don't get enough funding, I had a bum shoulder, I tweaked my finger, all these like little things to justify the result at the end. You know what I have to say? Man the fuck up, do your job, and shut the hell up. That's it. If you fail, it's not because somebody didn't pay you enough, right? It's because you're not doing your job. Do your job. Right now, everybody in the judo world, I get it. You can't do judo. That is not an excuse to not work out, right? To Dominic's point, he's like, well, I had surgery and quarantine. Why are you overeating? Right? You eat as an athlete because you need the fuel to train. You can eat 5,000 calories a day because you're going to burn 8 because you're working out 3 or 4 times a day. But if you're not training and you're not burning those calories, then why are you eating them? Because you're not doing your job. Do your job. If your job allows you to eat more, great. But the second that you lose that ability to train, your job is to put the right things into your body to do your job. It's not like right now, I get it. Everybody's quarantined. Nobody can do judo. That does not give you the right as an athlete to just F off. Zero. I don't care. If you can't run, if you can't lift weights, if you can't do yoga, if you can't do any physical activity, the one thing you can do is drink a lot of water and watch your food intake. Eat some salads. Eat some grilled chicken, right? Eat it with just lemon, right? Because it's not about the healthiness or what it tastes like. It's about making sure you are disciplined and you do the right things. Jesus, do not be lazy. Do not come to me in 3 months and be like, oh man, that first weight cut, man, I lost because of it. You lost because 3 months before, you did not do your job. Do your job. Man. Oh, you're killing me. But he is a good kid, though. Don't get me wrong. He is talented, too. He is, but... Oh. Oh. Travis Stevens for Senate. Oh, hey, Chief Pride is here. Chief Pride Judo. He was here in the first one, and right at the very end, okay, I missed it. But he made a comment, if memory serves me right, about passing his kid and some of his students on to Kitsusai. Am I remember that correctly? That was you? I feel like a lot has happened in the last couple of days. And then one of the questions I had asked was, you passed them off, but are you still involved in their training? Right, Chief? Am I correct? Yeah. Okay, so that happened, and you had actually made a comment. I had missed it, right? I had missed it, but you had made a comment that said you're still heavily involved in their training, right? Like Herman, I think you said, calls you. I'm really trying to go off like the blip of like the comments in the thread. But I think I shut the stream off, but it hit the comments right as like I was cutting out and I missed it when we were going live. Correct. Okay. So I want to have a conversation about this. And to your point, like kids do go through growth spurts. So you're right. Dominic might not have just gotten fat. But again, I'm not picking on him. I'm picking on like the idea of like I see athletes do that all the time. Right? Like I hear athletes complaining about not getting enough funding. But at the same time, like they don't have any results. And if everybody's complaining that USA Judo's operating or not doing a poor job at business, then why would you ever justify sponsoring athletes to go overseas that aren't bringing back medals, which increases the funds from the USOC? So then when they do a good job, everybody bashes them. But then when they do a bad job over here, everybody bashes them. And it's like they're getting bashed from both sides. And it's like, what does the community want? Do you want them to do a bad job? Or do you want them to do a good job? Because when they don't fund athletes who don't have results, they're doing a good job. Don't worry, Dominic. I'll eat for 2. I'm fat. I'm putting on the pounds. But anyways, I want to get back to Chief Pride Judo here. Because yesterday, I had made a statement about, passing on the kids. And we talked about a little bit today about passing on that next generation because you're doing them a disservice when your job as a local grassroots style club is to grow kids. And when you see a kid that has it, you see that kid that can take it to the next stage, you pass him off to a coach that can take him there and groom him to the next stage. And what he said was he passed his kids off to Herman in Florida, which is a national training center, which is great. And then he said at the same time, he's still heavily involved and Herman coaches him. So I want to take that overall picture and just put it out there. And what's his name? Chief Pride Judo. If you want to just throw some comments in here and we can get it back and forth going, I'm all for it. I love it. I love where this conversation is going, because for me, from the outside looking in, not knowing anything, this is what I hear. I hear a guy who said he's not qualified to take his kids to the next level, so he passed him off to a coach that he believes can take him to the next level. In turn, the coach calls back to the coach that isn't qualified to get input on what those kids should be doing. But he's not qualified. If he could do the job, why didn't they just stay here? Right? It's like a catch-22, and I see this all the time because of that fear of not necessarily letting go, but the fear from the coaches that they've passed athletes off to, and also the parents from being forgotten, the home club coaches from being forgotten. Like, they want the community to know that they were involved, so they stay involved. And it's like, but when you stay involved, you prevent the growth. Oh, he gives you updates. That's different. That's different. Okay. See, that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I saw it like on like a flip of a screen and I didn't catch it all. Is somebody in here trolling about killer jiu-jitsu midgets? Is that what I'm reading here from Star-Lord? What's going on? Yes. Great. So here's a great question that we should talk about, because he says right here that I sent him to Herman because I trust in his ability. I love it, because that's what you need. You need people that, like, you can see that path for the athlete on like what their stages are as they go. So for me, right, and this is just for me, right? I know Herman, I know Kitsusai, I know all the athletes there. Oh, you're talking about Joe Rogan. Okay, I'm okay with that. When I look at this situation, like Dominic, for example, or Jacob Moore, or some of the other ones, right? Back to what I had said earlier with the coaching, right? Herman, inside Kitsusai, he has athletes like Angelica Delgado, Alex Turner, Adonis Diaz, people that are on that IJF Olympic path, right? And then you have guys like Dominic Rodriguez, Jacob Moore, that are that cadet path to worlds. Now, with that being said, you have two completely different groups of athletes. And by the way, mind you, I've never been to a training session at Kitsusai, so I have no idea what's going on there. I'm speaking on like a broad stroke about the overall concept, just using this situation as an example. Whether it's right or wrong, it's just my opinion. So nothing against anybody. This is just me just being me. But here we go. So when I see people at the highest level of cadets and then the highest level of seniors inside the same practice run by one person, it's kind of like, who's losing out, or are both people losing the same amount? Because you can't coach a 16, 17, 15-year-old kid that is trying to win a cadet world title the same way you could coach somebody to win an Olympic gold medal. The structure of the training and the types of drills and the amount of drills versus the amount of randori differs, right? If you have a 30-year-old athlete or a 25-year-old athlete, they may only do 5 rounds. And then you have a 15-year-old kid that may need to do 20, right? Because that ratio is different. Younger kids recover faster, which means they can do more versus older athletes. And at the same time, how you structure coaching and how you structure your practice determines on who the practice is for, right? If I'm getting ready for a tournament, I might do like 5 1-minute lineups with like bigger level guy, bigger guys, not necessarily high level, just bigger. But if that cadet is also doing that same workout, but his competition isn't until later, what is he peaking for? Or is he just working out to work out because that's the idea, because it's not dedicated for his improvement? Which is why, again, back to like the American system as a whole, it would be nice to have a guy that was like, man, we could run the same practice in the same room, and I want you to focus on the cadets, and you watch them and you coach them and you give them tips. I'll focus on the seniors, and we can run the same style of practice, but you talk to them differently and I'll talk to them differently, and we can talk together, and then we can give feedback on the whole practice. But when a guy has to do it, it's so segmented. I feel like somebody isn't getting 100% of the attention in that environment, and somebody somewhere is missing out, right? And I'm not saying that what they're doing is bad, because again, you have to use what you have, right? If you don't have the resources of multiple coaches, then you can't use the resources of multiple coaches. So in that situation, it doesn't work. But when we're talking about a solution that could take USA Judo to that next stage, right? That is an avenue that we could fill, because we actually have super talented athletes. You know, the ones I named, Jacob Moore, Dominic Rodriguez, like those are talented kids that are actually really competitive on the IJF like world circuit for cadets. But what happens in those developmental years, right, when there's not somebody who's focused on it, right? We could all agree that if you had a guy that was just focused on the one thing they had to do, they would be better, right? It's why the Japanese, they have a coach for 60-66. They have a coach for 73-81. They have a coach for 90 and 100 and heavyweight. And then they have Inoue overseeing those coaches, because the style of judo and the amount of knowledge you have to have and the level of attention to detail matters, right? I'm not crazy. That's how the rest of the world functions. And if we don't start that, we are going to get left behind. Because if you expect somebody to coach the Olympians, but also expect them to coach the cadets, their time is divided. So it's hurting somebody somewhere, right? It's hurting somebody somewhere. That's all. And it's like, how do we make sure, this is the question I'm trying to get answered. How do we make sure that the athletes who are currently in our system, how do we make sure that they do not get left behind? That they actually improve and they have the resources that they need in order to reach their own goals and perform. Because our growth and our money that's in our system actually depends on winning world and Olympic medals, people. That is why the USOC gives us money. Let me see here. Super chat. Why do people believe BJJ is more complicated than judo? I trained at several BJJ academies, and many of the students felt that way. Okay. Let's try to do this politically correct. Give me a second, because I want to do this politically correct. I don't want to just like, go off on a tangent. My first thought to that, my first initial thought is because they're idiots. So I just got to say that. But that might not be the case, because Jiu-Jitsu does tend to like fall into that corporate realm where like they're actually intelligent people. But my second thought here is because they've been to a judo school that isn't really developed, and they're not really teaching judo at its finest. It's kind of like going to, I don't know how I would put it. Here's a good way of thinking about why jiu-jitsu isn't as complicated. Okay? When you're in close guard, for example, and let's say you wanted to do a triangle, right? Now, apart from the extremes, that same triangle that you do to whoever it is that's in your close guard will work against the other people who are in your close guard. Now, don't start thinking what I'm saying is due to like rank or like they might have defenses or it's harder to do. I'm saying from a technical standpoint, your ability to practice a triangle, whether somebody had, like, I could take somebody off the street, I could put them on their knees in somebody's close guard, and I could have my purple belt do a triangle. Like, it takes nothing from them to be able to do this. So just from that stage alone, where you could take a black belt, a brown belt, a purple belt, a blue belt, or a white belt, or somebody who's never done the sport before, and you could actually practice and improve. Okay? That actual setup, the actual technique itself, works also not just on skill, but also body types. Where you could have somebody in your close guard that is 5'2" and a $180, and you could do that same triangle. Then you could do the same triangle if he was 6'5" and 210. Right? So it's one technique that fits this wide range of people. Okay? And while jiu-jitsu might have more techniques, they are also applied to everybody in the sport for the most part, right? There's obviously outliers, right? Nobody in the chat go, but what if he's 400 pounds and I can't close my guard? I get it. But for judo, if you wanted to do Uchimata, for example, and the guy is 6'5", you have to actually do the throw differently than if he's 5'5", especially in a live scenario. And it also changes whether he's right-handed or left-handed. So for judo, like, whether you're right-handed or left-handed, close guard is close guard. In judo, how you do Uchimata against a lefty when you're a righty versus a righty when you're a righty, they are different throws. The steps and how you do them are different. The other problem with jiu-jitsu and why it's simpler, like, it may have more steps to accomplish the throw, but the amount of time and the way the sport is positioned in order to do those steps is done over this extended period of time. Judo, on the other hand, takes not as many steps, but more parts of the body in a more dynamic range. Like, if I wanted to do Uchimata, I have to understand how to step, pull, look, turn my hips while fighting through somebody that doesn't want me to do this, while balancing on one leg, while rotating them through the air with my arms and not falling over. That conceptually, all in of itself, is more complicated than any possible one technique you could ever learn in the sport of jiu-jitsu. I don't care what technique you throw at me. You could come up with some weird 10th planet stuff, right? Doesn't matter. It will not even come close to how complicated doing Uchimata actually is in a live scenario, right? Not to mention, right, if he weighs 220 versus 150, or whether he's 5'6" or 5'8" or 5'10", they all are different. And it even depends, like, what if he's holding double sleeves? What if he's double collar? What if he's this way with his feet that way? All of those things you have to process in your head and actually be able to still perform the technique. And you have to make all these little minor adjustments, right? If your foot's 2 inches to the right or an inch to the left or too deep or too back, it determines whether that throw actually works. Not even in the same ballpark. Not even close. It also, in order to learn judo effectively, you actually need another skilled judo player. Like, let that sink in for a little bit, right? Take two people off the street and teach them like a scissor sweep, or teach them like a lasso sweep, or teach them a spider guard sweep. You could nail that. You could nail that in like 10 minutes. I'm not saying that they couldn't perform it, but I'm saying you could get them to actually, in 10 to 15 minutes, you could get them to perform any one BJJ technique. Now, is it going to be flawless? Obviously not. But will it kind of look right? Yeah. Try to take two people that don't understand break falls, that don't understand how to take a fall, that don't know how to grab a gi, and then teach them how to do uchimata while they can stand on one foot. Find me an adult with no athletic experience that could do that. Not even close to the same. Which is why, at the end of the day, judo is so much better of an offer to the community because of its dynamics, because of how you have to move your body, because of the balance, because of the feel, the physicality, the strength, the timing, the finesse, because of all these things that judo has to offer somebody, and how by doing those things and being able to do those things, how much better they'll be in life, right? Being able to play with their kids, being able to roll around, wrestle with their kids, like all these things that you could get from the sport of judo that you can't necessarily get from BJJ because it doesn't have that dynamic ability to it, right? You could sell that to the community. The hurdle that you have to get over is how do you teach it, and how do you actually, because what's his name here brings up a super valid point. Let me get rid of this really quick. He brings up a valid point. He brought up a point where people just suck at teaching judo. And I don't disagree with that. I think a lot of people do a terrible job just in their delivery and their mannerisms and what they expect of people, how soon they expect it of people. The ranking system isn't there. And it's hard for people to think outside the box, to cookie cutter the system in order to get people from point A to point B on what they need to know. And he brings a valid point. I do think there's a better, more efficient way to teach judo in America. A super valid point. So, when we're talking about, Recon, you are 100% right there. Most injuries from judo are from overtraining, not judo itself. Yes, and while that is said, most people overtrain when they do judo. A lot of people have they've gotten into this Japanese mentality where they hear these stories about how these Japanese colleges train for like 3 hours, and they feel like they need to teach for 2 hours, and you have to have all of this randori session. But like, think about the human brain for a second, right? Or like, if you've ever been to school, right? Because I'm not sure, like some people might not, some people might have been homeschooled. But did you ever think that, classes for school are like an hour? Did anybody ever actually think about that? They're an hour. Does anybody know why? Did anybody ever take into the consideration that they might be an hour because most people think that if you were taught something for longer than an hour, you're not actually going to be able to recall what was actually taught. At some point, there's like an information overload. And I feel like that's what a lot of judo instructors do. They try to prove to people how smart they are and how much they know by throwing so much information out there that it actually hinders people's ability to understand it. It's no different than going to a strength coach whose sole purpose it is to run you through a workout where you can't move for the next 3 days, right? It's just stupidity. It's just their ego got involved and they felt like they had to prove a point, right? It's like when the JF told me that I hadn't done enough in the sport of judo to get my 6th degree black belt. They said that if I wanted it, I would have to fly all the way to Washington to sit through kata so that they could teach it to me. And then if I showed that I put forth like real effort and tried to learn it, they would give me my 6th degree. And it's like, why would I ever in a million years take the money that I work hard for to pay my money to fly to like they didn't even offer for me to do it here. Like I had to fly to my home state of Washington with my own money to sit through them trying to teach me kata, which I'm paying for, by the way, right? I pay for my rank certificate. I pay for my flight. I pay for my rental car so that they can give me a piece of paper that serves absolutely almost no value because I can't even run a judo school in America because I have nobody to compete against in my area to actually earn money where I could sell the fact that I actually have a 6th degree. Like I could sell the Olympic medal. Like, hey guys, I went to 3 Olympics. I really know judo. I'm a 5th degree. I won an Olympic silver medal. That's why I want to charge you $250 a month, $200 a month. That's why I want to do that. I have value. I understand how to teach. I understand the sport. And I can help your kids grow. Right? I can teach them how to goal set. I can teach them how to be good citizens. I can do all of these things. That 6th degree is like, you're going to make me. And it's that mentality, right, inside the sport. Drives me nuts. And just so everybody's here aware, I did the first 3 katas. I did those on record in front of a panel. So I did those 3. Don't get me wrong. I just didn't do my 4th. And after winning an Olympic silver medal, I hadn't done enough in the sport of judo to justify just getting a 6th degree. Just throwing that out there for everybody. And I personally think kata is great. I think everybody that has adults in their judo program, even at white belts, even at green belts, make them do kata because it'll teach them how to be a good uke. And when you have good ukes, the actual part of learning how to throw will be so much easier because they'll know how to take a fall and they will feel very comfortable taking that fall. Whereas when people don't teach them kata, it can make the actual act of taking a fall very scary. So I'm definitely not against kata. I'm against paying my own money to go get a rank that has zero value in the community, other than looking across the room and saying, I outrank you. Which, at the end of the day, like, I don't have an ego. Who cares? Like, who really cares? At the end of the day, like you have a 7th degree, you have an 8th degree, you have a 9th degree. My life is not affected if the guy down the street from me has a 9th degree belt and I don't. Does nothing. I don't know. That's just my personal opinion. I do think, again, back to that first rant, we do need to have a system in place here in America where we teach people who aren't the athletically gifted ones, right? That are gonna aspire to be Olympic champions, that they need an avenue of something that gives them hope, gives them pride, gives them a sense of duty inside the sport, which is why when I sat down with Keith, I petitioned to him to actually write a coach's curriculum that any dojo in America could run. And you would pay a fee to USA Judo, like a membership, in order to get the class structured sent to you so that you could learn how to cultivate a 14-year-old kid to teach your 10-year-olds. And by the time in 20 years, we would have an army of amazing coaches. And then once we did that, and they were actually in the sport, and they could actually venture out and open up their own schools because that first school that they came from would still be there, they could actually grow and expand. It's like a 20-year plan. But at that point in 20 years, then we can have the conversation about, hey, do we go to all the YMCAs now that we have all of these professional schools, right? Then do we go to the YMCAs of America and say, hey guys, in all of your areas, right? Let's go to like 50 areas in America. Maybe we pick one area per state, and we just take a couple of brown belts, a couple of black belts that are younger, and actually run grassroots judo for YMCA members. Or maybe you go to like the Cub Scouts of America, right? And you actually make a badge that says, hey, I learned how to do takedowns, and you run actually across the country because now you have an army of like little black belts that have been teaching for the better half of 15, 20 years. By the age of 30, you could have them teach all the little boys and girls in the Cub Scouts, whatever that is. You could get them to earn a badge, and they would have a sense of pride because they've earned it, right? And of those people that all earned that badge, how many of them could you actually expose and turn into potential students, right? Like we're not there yet, which is why you got to put these plans in place that can help today the growth of the future. Like, I'm not into the plans that are, so grandiose that we can't accomplish them today. Like, I could sit down with a couple of like-minded individuals and I could say, hey, this is a coaching course for a year. It costs $150 a month for your school to have this coaching course. And in turn, you can charge extra for kids to be a part of a leadership session where they actually get control and authority over other members of the school. Think about how empowering that is for a kid to actually be able to go to younger kids and have kids look up to them and show them a sign of respect as somebody who actually knows more than they do, right? That's what we have to do with judo. We have to empower our dojo owners. We have to empower our instructors. We have to empower our students, not only to the Olympic Games, but also to themselves, right? To just the community. There's just such a better way. And there got to be things we can do now that we could implement now on a national scale where we could just grow and grow and grow. And it's sad. Chris Mash, thank you for the super chat. What is the first throw you would teach after they learn ukeme, and why? It would probably be ogoshi, maybe. Again, I'm not the right guy to ask because I'm not a professional like newbie coach, like white belt coach. I'm not there yet. So the only thing I know I wouldn't teach them is Osoto, probably for their first throw as they step onto the mat, because they don't have the neck muscle and it tends to like whip their head back. They need, a few months of like actually understanding like the chin is always tucked to make sure that that doesn't happen. And I wouldn't want to risk a concussion with the new student. But I'm not sure, because again, like I'm more into the cadets and the competitive side of it when it comes to like knowledge and like what do we do with them, what types of things do we fix, how do we see improvements, what's too complicated, what's not complicated enough. So when we talk about like the pure grassroots, I actually haven't dived into it enough. And I don't mind telling people that, like, hey, I understand where my shortcomings are. I'm being completely transparent. Like the absolute first throw, I'm not 100% sure. But I know some people that do, and I know who I would call to ask. And I would brainstorm and I would ask questions and I would say, well, what about this? Well, what about this? And I would troubleshoot it and I would try to poke holes in their philosophy just to make sure it's sound. But I guess after seeing the question, Ogoshi, I mean, it's safe. It's an easy fall to take. It's done with two hands. They stand on both feet. I wouldn't teach somebody a one-legged throw to start because they don't necessarily have the balance or the coordination yet. But that's that. J Love with the super chat. Nice. Do you think you will ever do a seminar at San Jose State when the pandemic is over? If not, I will definitely like to visit and train at your dojo. Well, thank you for that. And I'm not sure. Does San Jose State hold seminars? Right? I don't know. Maybe if you're in the California area, you should all bombard Marty Malloy's like Instagram and tell her she needs to shoot a DVD for Judo Fanatics. And then I'll fly out there to film it with her. And then maybe we'll do a joint seminar together. Maybe we could do that. And then maybe, just maybe I could convince her to like, maybe we donate all the funds to like Project 2024 or like the We Defy Foundation for military vets, or we do something like that. That way, like it goes somewhere of note. I mean, I'd rather it go to Project 2024. That way we could fund kids like Dominic and Jacob to like other events, but But maybe. I'm not saying it's not impossible, but there's definitely nothing on the table. But yeah. Chuck Jefferson has done some high-level seminars. Nice. Recon, you travel across the country to train at one of my seminars. As of right now, there are 0 seminars scheduled. I was supposed to be in Italy in the summer, and then I was supposed to be in Finland in the summer. See, guys, like I actually, charge whoever brings me in for my seminars. Just being upfront, I charge $5,000 for anybody that wants me to come out. It's $5,000 for the weekend. I fly in on a Friday. I fly out on a Sunday afternoon. Whatever you do between that Friday and that Sunday of whatever you want to schedule, I'll be there. Like you're buying my time for the weekend, and if that means you want to do like 2-hour sessions, no problem. If you want to do a session Friday night and the plane can land and we can do it, I'm all aboard. If you want to do 4 sessions that are 2 hours each on Saturday and 2 sessions on Sunday before I have to catch my flight, I'm all for it. My expectation is for the school owner to actually market and sell the slots. The reason why I don't actually get people in the States to pay that price tag, which is why I don't do them, is because they want to do it as like a charity thing for their school. So they only want to pay $2,000 because they can only take a portion of the development funds in the area. where I'm like, I want to work with professionals. I want to work with people who are actually going to grow the sport, who are actually knowledgeable and can actually petition the community to actually like what it is to have an Olympian in the area that's actually medaled at the games, to speak to their kids and help their youth and develop, because they understand I have a knowledge, right? It's not a charity case. Like I don't need the money. Judo doesn't pay my bills, right? I charge that because it's what an Olympian, somebody who has reached the pinnacle in the sport, should be making for the knowledge that they have and they can give to the people who should be coming to these seminars to learn from. We have to get out of this idea that seminars are run as charity cases, because judo people aren't charity. It's not charity that they can't afford to go out because they're dedicating their time, energy, and effort. You pay people for the knowledge. Don't show up just to write a check. Show up because you actually see value in what it is that they have to say. Ryan, thank you for the super chat. I'm glad you like what I do. Self-worth. There you go, Chris. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah, Recon. I remember when I did that, when I held that seminar for $75 for 2 2-hour sessions. Like, and you know what? I stayed the entire time and I worked with those two kids for the 2 hours. And the next day. I did it. Because you know what? They deserve it. And on top of that, they didn't pay. I think they actually like cut a deal to actually come in and actually help set up to be able to attend the camp. But I did it anyways. Like, I was supposed to be there. I like teaching. It is fun for me. I enjoy seeing the progress that others make. I feel good about who I am when I have the ability to improve somebody's life in an area in which they want improvement. Right? If you don't want my help, I'm not upset that you don't ask for it. Like, you can take it or leave it. If you want it, I give it. But I'm not about running around like nickel and diming to like make sure everybody gets my information. I don't care. That's why I like YouTube so much, and why you guys are here, and why I try to do so much, is because you guys all choose to be here and listen to the stupid stuff that comes out of my mouth, right? Because you feel like you get value, and I like that you guys show up because you get value. This is fun for me. I'm glad we are all learning and engaging, and hopefully, some people probably show up here just to catch a couple of the blurbs I say so they can go bash me, offline somewhere else to their friends. But I don't do that. That's fine too. Everybody's entitled to an opinion. No problem. No, Big Whoa. I feel like I should talk about those experiences as a kid, because when I was a kid, that's like a different type of topic it blends over, because some of the things I'm saying now are things my coaches did for me, which is why I think if we could do it on a national scale, it would really help out a lot of people. And there's no such thing as bad publicity. Just here for the rants. That's okay. It's 100% okay. I don't mind. It's 10:41 at night. Again, I've been in my office since like 7:30 this morning. Don't even mind. But yeah, hopefully this one answered some of the questions that people had. Let me see here. What's this? Oh yeah, here we go. Here's one of these questions, right? Where if we jump in here to one of these other lines, he makes some valid points here. I'm kind of hiding my face, but that's okay. It's hard to read. Let me see if I can pull it up here where it's a little bit bigger. There we go. Okay. So he makes some valid points here where he says, like, even large tournaments, haven't been to a national, so we can't speak, that it's all run on pencil and paper, like something out of the 70s where we can all automate it. And he is 100% right. Like, I am so confused on why tournaments in today's age are so disorganized. Right? Like, I think there's apps out there that'll just automate all of it. It's insane and it's dirt cheap. But people would rather, like, be cheap than value their own time. And it's... ugh. And then he goes on, it keeps track of all your stuff, matches, blah, 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 blah. Oh, there was a guy, actually, that brought up judo in the school system's working well. And they use Hawaii as a great example of that. And he does here, too, where he basically says there's a few good examples of this working well. Judo, France, and Hawaii. Judo is part of the educational system, and Kano designed judo to basically be in PE. While I don't think judo in schools is something blah, 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 it would lead to increased numbers for players, which increase the scale of the sport. In my honest opinion, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not the most important thing. Okay, so let's have this discussion really quick. I'm against judo for it being in the school system for where we are today. We don't need more people in the system. We have super talented athletes in our system right now with what we're doing. Right? Like I've said it before, Jacob Moore, Dominic Rodriguez, like there are talented kids. Right, Jack Unesca's in here. He's another one. Like I think I saw his name through the chat about the cake when we first started. He may not be here now because it's late. But there are talented kids here. The problem is we don't actually do anything for the people we do have. So by going into the school system to have this influx of technically free, because it's in the school system, which means there's no more money, there's just more headaches, that how do we service them? How, like, what do you do to service all of these people that are now involved in judo? We're not even servicing the people we have now, much less the people in the system. So, I'm like, I get it. At some point, it's going to be great to have judo in the United States in a school system. I love the idea and I am not against it. I'm against that for the answer for today, right? Because we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the resources or the ability to even pull that off. I'm glad Hawaii does, but at the same time, for all of the people that they have, how many people have actually come out of Hawaii and went to the Olympics? Taylor Takada is one who is still there. Good judo player, right? Qualified for the Olympics. But at the same time, like, for the number of people that they have, and you know why they haven't? Because they don't pay for it. It's not necessarily valued, right? They'll kind of blow it off like a practice here or there. They're not like driven, dedicated, and like believe in the system. They do it because it's available, not because it's what they want. So here's a great question. What makes the system work for wrestling, but not for judo? Great question. Because when you have to be qualified to actually teach wrestling, it's not that hard, right? Like if you went to a D3 college, you could probably coach at a local high school. If you wrestled in high school, you could probably coach at like a middle school, right? But don't forget, at the top, coaches are paid. Just let that sink in. Right now in USA Judo, nobody is paid. No coaches are paid. They get a stipend when they go on trips, which ranges between like $500 and like maybe $1,500 at most, probably. I'm guessing because I've actually never been paid, so I'm guessing. If I remember right, that is what they get paid. I can tell you when I go on trips internationally, I spend more than that on my cell phone bill for my data plan so that I can actually get my job done because I'm doing judo overseas for basically free. I have to pay currently to go overseas because I have to spend $10 a day for my cell phone. I have to pay for the internet every day because I have a job to do, right? I work in e-commerce. I do internet marketing. I have to wake up every morning. I have to get things done. And I have to pay to do that. And judo, that $500 on that trip doesn't go very far. I'm telling you right now. It doesn't go very far. But what makes wrestling great is you have this hierarchy where like there's national level coaches that are paid. There's college level coaches that are paid. There's high school level coaches that are paid. There's middle school coaches that are paid. I'm pretty sure you could probably find some elementary school coaches that are paid too privately. Right? Judo, nobody is paid. Under 23, nobody is paid. I don't know, but I would bet a lot of money that no coach in USA Judo history has ever been designated as an actual salary employee where his actual job description was to grow judo, teach judo, and travel with the national team. Like, I don't think that's actually ever been a job description. I might be completely wrong. But in my time in judo since 2004-ish, no one has ever been like, I wake up every morning and my job when I tell people, I get paid because I'm the coach of the U.S. national team. I don't think anybody in the history of the sport has ever been able to say that. Just let that sink in. That nobody has ever been able to walk around and say, what's your job? What do you do for a living? I'm the coach of the U.S. national judo team and the Olympic team. That's my job. That's mind-blowing to me. Mind-blowing. Yeah, Christopher, same thing. But if you haven't done judo, you can't really teach judo. The other kicker, which to the whole wrestling judo argument being in school systems, is a numbers game. Right? I think USA Judo has 10,000 or like 12,000 members. That is across everything. And now what some of you guys are thinking is, well, not everybody's a USA Judo member because they don't have to be. I get it, but just let it sink in that on the national scale, there are 10,000. Even if you could throw in like another 10 from the JF and you could throw in another 10 from the JA and they were actually all different and you could actually get to like 30,000 people in judo, which is a crazy number in the United States, considering our nationals for seniors have brackets of like 8 people in them. But let's say you could. Okay, let's say you had that number. That is not enough people coaching to coach at all the middle schools, high schools, and colleges. Forget actually like qualified people, which is why I think it's so important and it's vitally important that you take people right now that are qualified and you pay them a salary to coach the cadets, the juniors, the under 23s, and the seniors because you need them to be champions. You need to find dedicated people to make them a champion where their life's mission when they wake up in the morning is to make sure that kid steps on the podium. All they do is think. They wake up in the morning and they're thinking about how that kid can win a world title. Right? They're thinking about how they're going to win the cadets. They're thinking about that cadet from, Azerbaijan, Germany, France, and how can I get my kid? What does he need to work on? What things does he need to do? He's not even thinking about the Olympics, this coach. He's not even thinking about the Junior Worlds. He's thinking cadets, and he's building that relationship, and he's building that rapport, and he follows that kid. And you do that for all those stages. Meanwhile, all of the grassroots people, they start promoting judo as a business that actually turns a profit. Because what people don't understand is, as a business, if they ran their school like a business and they charged money for it, right, they could actually influx the number of people who do it that actually buy memberships to USA Judo, USJF, which in turn influx the cash, which puts more resources back into the sport. But in turn, it's important that if you're going to hire those coaches, there's a head coach above it who oversees all the other coaches, who is paid as well. And he coaches the coaches on how to coach, and he runs a national level coaching course for dojo owners to actually increase the number of coaches to keep people in the sport of judo that could in turn open up more schools to grow more awareness. Like, I don't disagree with what everybody is saying, that judo can't be in schools and can't be with wrestling. I'm saying we can't be there today. We need to do things today to make the change. That's all. And I think it starts with teaching people how to coach, charging a premium for the pleasure, because at the end of the day, right, you're teaching somebody a job skill, because they can take that skill and they can make a living. They should pay for that privilege above and beyond the actual payment of learning judo, because they're paying for you to learn judo, and then they're paying you to learn how to teach judo because you're qualified to, because you're teaching them judo, right? And then they can take that skill that is marketable and desired by the community and then open up their own school, which in turn gives them a living and keeps them in the sport longer. So many people after senior nationals are just out of the sport. They don't even bother teaching. They don't open up schools. They don't come to tournaments. They don't do anything. They just walk away. You know why? Because we don't have anything for them. And everybody's like, well, they could buy mats, they could do this, but there's nobody there to teach them how to do those things. It's not hard, but it's scary. It's super scary to do, right? When you open up a dojo, it will be the second largest purchase in your entire life. Wrap your head around that. To open up a martial arts studio, it will be the second largest purchase of your entire life, next to your house. That is scary. That is super scary, but also super profitable. And it can be done. And you can help people, and you can hold their hand, and you could grow this sport if it was somebody's job to do it. That's all. And that's where I sit. So I'm not against the far off belief that we can do these things. I just feel like we can't do them today with the resources we have, and we can't look at other countries and say we need to do what they do because we don't have those resources. We need to figure out a way that as Americans, we can solve this problem because we're smart people. We're all smart, right? We all bring something of value to the table, and it should be done. So this isn't wrong. It's just backwards, right? You would pay coaches, which would in turn allow you to run a system to empower the youth, which in turn would keep them in the system longer, which would increase the revenue of judo in the United States and afford you the ability in 5 to 10 years to actually double the number of schools in this country. Just let that sink in. You could double the number of schools in this country in 5 to 10 years by paying coaches. Because when you pay coaches for success on the mat and you get it, which Jimmy Pedro proved with his under 23 team with me, Kayla, and Marty, he proved it. The increase of revenue that you get from the USOC goes way up, right? But also, if every school who ran this program got one athlete that actually made it to the end of their entire student base, they need one that was like, I love judo, this is great, I can do this professionally and I want to. If they got one, which isn't far-fetched, right? If you got a school of 100 people and you can't get one guy that loves it so much that he wants to do judo, you're doing something wrong. Because you probably got guys already that are at your school, right, that just show up every day anyways. And in turn, you as the business owner, if you are smart, you would leave your school to that person so he doesn't have to change anything, and you would go open up another school. And you would charge that person what would be an affiliation fee so that you could make money from his school. You could give him a full-time job, paying him $80,000 a year to teach judo to a bunch of kids to empower more people while you opened up a second business off the profits of your first business to make more money and make more coaches to open up more schools. It's a simple business model. Wow, what time is it? Whoa, it's 11 o'clock. We've been at this for 2.5 hours. So that'll be it for tonight, guys. Hopefully everybody enjoyed the rant. And if you did, then make sure you subscribe to the channel or do what some of these cool people have done and become a channel member. Right? That's super cool. And I'm super excited, right? Because I did the member thing, like it's not even a month old, right? But I'm super excited to see your little icon go from like white to blue. I'm super excited for that. I don't know why. It's going to be cool to see like the different colors as like this thing grows. But that's where I'm at. Bye, Dominic. Dominic, if you're really 73 kilos, I want a round. Me and you are going to go at it. You're welcome, Chief Pride. Super stoked. Don't forget, guys. Tomorrow, I cannot remember what we talked about, but I already scheduled it. It's been a super long day. And I'm in the middle of rebuilding my gym. Right, because I got to put in that fitness studio, so there's actually no mats down. But I'm hoping that it goes down again so that we can continue the movement and hand placements on Sunday. If not, I'll try to clear up an area upstairs, but no promises. No promises. I'll try. Got a lot of stuff going on though, but I'm gonna try. So keep an eye out for that on Sunday. Yeah, more gripping, more movement stuff. Okay. Hey, I'm always ready. I'm always up for a fight. Got my name on it. Me and you, Dominic, we're going to go at it. And maybe, just maybe, we'll film it and we'll do it live here on YouTube. Me and you, next time I see you. We'll just pull out my phone. We'll have a guy hold it and we'll go live here on YouTube. It'll be fun. It'll be fun. Maybe that's something I should do. I should just get some people together and just start fighting people live on YouTube. I'm kind of fat, though. I might have a heart attack. We'll see. Not exactly in shape to do more than a couple rounds. But I got enough energy to take on Dominic. That's for sure. Paul, thank you for the super chat. I'm glad you liked it. Hopefully it got some people thinking, just not even agreeing with me, right? But just understanding my philosophy and my point of view, because I agree with where everybody thinks we should be. I just don't think we could be there today. And we should have answers for what we can do today. I have to make 81. Are you crazy? I plan on eating cake and candy and chocolate. I was a professional as an athlete, but I'm not an athlete anymore. I do what I want. Right? No way I'm making 81. If I was going to make 81, I might as well jump back on the circuit and then just do it with you. Maybe that's what we should do. Maybe we should just make like a YouTube live. Travis makes a comeback and we just go live every day and just follow me along as I have heart attacks and cut weight and fight on the IJF circuit. That'd probably get 1 million views. Anyways, it is super late. I am super hungry. Time to say bye. Until next time, guys. See you guys tomorrow. Same time, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. See you guys tomorrow.